Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching Decoding Now, and I'm Meghna Deka. Remember the COVID pandemic? Over 7 million people were killed across the world. It brings back a sense of abject desperation, gripping fear, and a deep personal loss for most. What if I told you that this could have been prevented? That this wasn't natural? It was a man-made pandemic. An experiment on mice in a Chinese lab which went wrong. And what if I told you that this lab in Wuhan in China was funded by American tax dollars, and that the then US President Joe Biden's own close aide allegedly lied to the Congress and tried to hide the origins of COVID pandemic? At least that's the claim which is being made. Tulsi Gabbard, on her last and final day as the director of US's National Intelligence, has accused Dr. Anthony Fauci of funding the Wuhan research with millions of taxpayers' money in US. She has claimed that after a failed experiment, there was a lab outbreak, and this is what led to the COVID pandemic across the entire world. Dr. Fauci was an advisor of Joe Biden and the go-to person when it came to the handling of COVID in America during that time. During the pandemic, efforts were made to try and trace the origins of the COVID virus. The virology community, remember, was split about whether or not it was naturally occurring. Sample this. The first theory was that it was a natural outbreak. Like any pandemic, it just happened naturally. The second theory was that it was an animal-to-human transmission which had happened. Essentially, it also, many in this theory too, had also said that it was the wet markets of China which may have led to human transmission of this COVID virus. Then there was a third theory, and this is the most interesting one, that it was leaked from a Chinese lab after an experiment gone wrong. So what is the truth? Now you have Tulsi Gabbard, the top spy of the Trump administration on her last day in office, has alleged that Dr. Fauci had funded the dangerous gain-of-function research. That's the name of the research, the gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab, and worked with politicized elements, she says, within the intelligence community, that he allegedly hid the virus's lab leak origins and even lied to the Congress while he was under oath in 2024. Let me get you the precise charges that she has made on your screens. That Fauci had funded research at China's Wuhan Institute. That dangerous gain-of-function research was funded by him. That millions, in plural, she says, millions in US taxpayer dollars was provided by Fauci. That Fauci had influenced the intel assessments on COVID origins. That Fauci had misled the US Congress even when he was under oath in 2024. That the Wuhan outbreak, which happened in 2019 at the end of the year later, is what became the COVID pandemic as it spread across the entire world. Listen in to the post to what exactly it is that Tulsi Gabbard had posted about, saying that it's time America knows the truth.
Before the COVID pandemic, Dr. Fauci, as head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, provided millions in U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund dangerous gain-of-function research on bat coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, work which is now widely viewed as the source of the unintentional lab leak that sparked the pandemic.
Well, let's explain in detail the COVID conspiracy that Tulsi Gabbard is alleging. Well, it all, as per her, starts with Dr. Fauci, who was then the NIAID head. And this is, of course, part of the NIH in America. That NIAID, when he was the head, gave funds to the tune of $661,980. And that funding was sent across to an NGO. This was all in the year 6th of January 2014 to the 31st of May 2019. Remember, there was COVID pandemic at the end of 2019. So the funding was there till the 31st of May 2019. Where was the funds going to? It went to an NGO which was called the EcoHealth. Now, in turn, EcoHealth was also funding. Whom was it funding? It was funding the Wuhan lab in China, is what Tulsi Gabbard has claimed. She also claims that the Wuhan lab, as I was telling you earlier, was researching the gain of function. That was the research which they were indulging in. That bat coronavirus was being looked into, was being experimented with, and these experiments were happening on mice. She's also claimed that that is when there was a virus leak in the Wuhan lab. And by December 2019, as we all remember, the first case of COVID was officially admitted about, which was 1st of December 2019, when they said, yes, this is the first case of COVID. And from there on, we all remember what happened over the next few years. The COVID outbreak, a pandemic which gripped the entire nation. But as per Tulsi Gabbard, when there was a probe into what the origins of the COVID virus was, in 2024, the American Congress was looking into it. A subcommittee was formed which questioned Fauci. As per Tulsi Gabbard, Fauci lied while he was under oath to the American Congress. We'll get you the details of that. Let's first show you what Tulsi Gabbard calls documented proof. This is what has been cited in the latest 4 excerpts that we are going to show you of the declassified files. The document in question is the Wuhan Final Interim Report, as it is called. It has been declassified by Tulsi Gabbard herself. This is the first excerpt that you can see on your screens. In yellow, we have highlighted what you need to look at very closely. This is the page which identifies the funding organization as the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. This is, of course, which was headed at that time by Anthony Fauci. The document shows NIAID had channeled $661,980 to an organization which was called the EcoHealth Alliance, and that is the proof that you can see on your screens. You can see EcoHealth Alliance there being highlighted for you as well. The second proof, and this is the page which shows that EcoHealth Alliance received those funds between June 2014 and May 2019. Here's the critical detail. The first recorded COVID-19 case in Wuhan, as I was telling you earlier, was the 1st of December 2019, just months after the funding had ended. Why did the funding suddenly end? Well, questions we don't have the answers for, at least as of yet. The third excerpt that we are showing for you from the interim final report is this page. This page establishes that the foreign recipient of these funds were under EcoHealth Alliance was none other than the Wuhan Institute of Virology, the very lab which alleged to have been the source of COVID-19. And the fourth bit of proof on your screens right now. This is what is being called the final nail in the coffin. The document reveals that scientists in that lab infected mice with 4 COVID variants. 3 of these COVID variants were artificially altered, as per this report. At least one variant showed a fatality rate of 75%, as compared to merely 25% for the original strain. That the fatality was 75% in one of the strains which was being experimented upon in the Wuhan lab. Tulsi Gabbard has alleged that this is proof that COVID-19 was being genetically engineered to be more deadly before there was some kind of a leak from this lab. That they experimented on the virus, made it deadlier, and then there was a catastrophe as there was a leak in the lab. And we all know the rest, as many say, was history. Interesting to note, Dr. Fauci, who was a close aide of the then president, Joe Biden, got a preemptive pardon by the former president as he left office. This was in January 2025, a preemptive pardon from any future legal action that he may be forced to undergo. In fact, that is the big thing that we are pointing out right now, because it's important for us to understand What exactly? The next graphics that I'm going to be putting out on your screen so that you will be able to understand exactly why and how all of this had spread. As per Tulsi Gabbard, Dr. Fauci has also given a false testimony to the US Congress in 2024, under oath, that is. Well, this is what a classified document says, that in 2024, the Congress had asked Dr. Fauci, did you communicate with the intel agencies on COVID research? To which, allegedly, Dr. Fauci had said, not to my knowledge about COVID. Did he lie about it? As per Tulsi Gabbard, he did, because in August 2021, there was a communication which has been now made public where a whistleblower claims that there was a false testimony which was given by Fauci to the US Congress. But let's tell you about the scientific community which has split over the origins of COVID, because we need to understand that there are many different strains as to what really may have happened. The scientific community itself is split. There are experts who give China a complete clean sheet. For example, in February 2020 itself, there were statements coming out by 27 scientists in Lancet, the medical journal, which said the conspiracy theories that COVID-19 is not a natural origin is condemnable. Another denial came in by March 2020 itself. This was in the research journal Nature Evidence, which shows that SARS-CoV-2 is not a purposefully manipulated virus, that it was natural. Third denial came by June 2020, and this came in the Groningen University of Oslo, which said that parts of the virus are believed to be man-made, in fact appear in nature. Another denial came in July 2020. This was Dr. Rachel Tarlington of the UK University of Nottingham, and she said in her research that man-made coronavirus theory is just a magical thinking. Fifth denial came in from Professor Christian Anderson of the California saying that it is complete nonsense. It is unintelligible, not even remotely scientific theory that it was all made in China. But even during the pandemic, there were others who raised the red flag and demanded a thorough probe into the made in China virus, as they called it. For example, you had the Boeing engineer Rosanna Sugreto, as well as the geneticist Yuri Dejin, who had said that genetic structure of the virus doesn't rule out a lab origin. Doesn't rule out. Doesn't say it was, but says it doesn't rule out a lab origin. They went on to say that the virus might be a result of lab manipulation techniques. Then there was another one. This one came in from David Relman of the Stanford University's microbiologist, who said that the origin story for COVID-19 is missing many key details. Then there are others, 18 prominent scientists who wrote in top journal, The Science, theories of accidental release from a lab remains viable, that it is viable and possible. So what really happened in 2019 at the Wuhan lab? Was COVID pandemic man-made? Was it engineered in China, specifically funded by American taxpayers' money? Well, let me go across to our panelists. We have a very special guest joining us here on Decoding Now today. Jennifer Zheng. She's a member of the International Press Association of China, Chinese expert rather, and a host of a show called The Inconvenient Truths. Jennifer Zheng reports. But more than all of that, Jennifer Zheng is an activist who has refused to cower down to the pressure which was exerted on her, to her family, by the Chinese government when she decided that it was her duty to expose what the truth was. Jennifer Zheng can be called the first whistleblower, the original whistleblower, who said that this could have been a result of a lab leak in Wuhan. She's joining us today from an undisclosed location because, of course, understandably, she's faced years of intimidation, of threats. Jennifer Zheng, I appreciate you joining us here today. It's never easy to have this conversation with you, but you've been fighting this uphill battle for a very long time. Now it appears that you have US's first never-seen-before disclosed files now coming to light, saying it is possible what you've been saying all along, and with a twist that it may have been funded by American taxpayers' money. What was your first reaction when you heard Tulsi Gabbard? Was it that of surprise, or did you feel vindicated?
Actually, it is not a surprise. I think there have been media reports about Fauci or the U.S. funding the Wuhan Institute of Virology several years ago. And I personally interviewed actually a whistleblower who had the personal admission from Shan Chao, a researcher at Wuhan Institute of Virology, who admitted to him in person that he was given 4 engineered strains of coronavirus in February 2019. And his task, or his team's task, is to select one from the 4 already engineered coronavirus, which one can infect as many species as possible. So his team did experiments of different species like mice and some other animals, and then of course submitted their selection or the result. So for Shan Chao, it was very clearly he actually used the word bioweapon in his conversation with the the whistleblower I interviewed. I actually already released that interview 36 minutes long, I think in 2021. So everybody can access that in my X account and YouTube channel. So for me, this latest information from, of course, Tulsi Gabbard is not anything new. I had been knowing it for a long time. I had tried to raise the awareness of this issue. But what I think make me very sad is it took so long. It's 6 years since the breakout of this pandemic for the public to know this little bit of real information, and anyone who tried to expose, a disease or a pandemic should be a affair in the so-called scientific or medical industry or community. But how a medical and scientific issue can be so politicalized and used as a political weapon and be affected so heavily.
But Jennifer Zheng, even the WHO never at the time took a stand, said it's ambiguous. We're not quite sure what happened.
Yeah, so it amazed me how hard it is for the public to get a little bit of true information. It took us so long to learn this little bit of information, and it's still, I think, a question of whether more information or more follow-up research or investigations will be done, and whether Dr. Fauci will be held responsible or accountable for what he has been doing, even for lied to the Congress. And of course, another thought about me is how dangerous it is for us to cooperate with the Chinese Communist Party, because they have no moral, I think, you can say, restraint. And they have been studying the so-called unrestricted warfare for many, many years. And bioweapon and biowar is a very important part of that warfare. And how can we, as someone in the free world, could, I think, funding the Communist Party to develop a bioweapon?
You've made a very valid point. How can the free world allow bioweapons to be developed, to fund this development of bioweapons? Because if these charges are true, questions must be asked. It's been 6 long years, but is there a systemic bid which is being made, an international conspiracy to hide the real truth about the origins of the COVID pandemic itself? Jennifer Zheng, keep your fight on. It's been 6 long years. We are keeping you at your location undisclosed because we understand that your life is under danger as well, because you've been brave enough to blow the whistle. You were the first and original whistleblower. Appreciate the fight that you're continuing. With that, we wrap up this show. Thank you for watching Decoding Now.